All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. The Avalanche schedule, that came out a little while ago, and because the Avs have been a pretty busy team, we haven't had time to talk about it. Until today, we're going to cover the Colorado Avalanche schedule for next season on today's episode of Locked On Avalanche.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure to follow us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And, of course, subscribe to our subtext. Link to that is in the show notes below. And subscribe. You can chat with Kyle and I one-on-one. All right, sir. You can see our rundown if you're watching on YouTube. We're recording this the night of 4th of July. And, of course, everybody thinks of fireworks and the hot dog eating contest. And I always love the topic that gets brought up around, when that concludes, because Joey Chestnutt usually wins it. And then we have to have the debate on if he's one of the best athletes in American sport. I'm using air quotes for people that are listening on a radio.
I think they feel it.
So we'll talk about it. Why not? But where we are going to start today, I'll probably take up our first two segments, is the Avalanche schedule. This thing came out over a week ago now, I think. And just with all the trades the Avalanche were doing with Johansson and Colton and free agency, and it was just every time we wanted to do it, something else was going on. And now today's the day, sir. So I'm sure people are familiar with some of the games. I don't know how much people are into this. I always love schedule release day.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just nice to see where everything is going to line up, and you can kind of look to see what some of the big games that they're going to have. What are their back-to-backs? What are their road trips going to look like? So why don't we dive into this thing?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. All right. So, and again, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to get some graphics for you up there. Here's October, game one. That's, one of the ones that's the first thing you look at, because that's the first game of the season. And they are on the road in Los Angeles. In fact, your first three games of the season are on the road. A quick, short little California road trip. Well, not all California, going up to Seattle. We'll say a West Coast Pacific road trip. LA, San Jose, and then Seattle. And then two home games. Your first home game in Ball Arena is against Chicago. That seems to be your opening night matchup for the past however many years.
As many years as they played the same preseason opponents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you're against Carolina Hurricanes. So I looked up the odds at FanDuel, and the Avs are still the favorite heading into next season. Carolina has moved up to the second favorite. I think Avalanche were plus 800 and Carolina was plus 900. So those are your two favorites going into this season, and they're going to play early. The Avs' fifth game of the season is against Carolina. That's at home. And then to end the month, you are on the road for three more games. You're going over to the East Coast, Islanders, Penguins, Buffalo. So out of all the games in October, you're playing 2 home games and 6 road games.
If you think this is crazy, wait till we get deeper in the schedule.
Yeah.
They really took attention to the Avs are a really good road team and ran with it.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, go ahead.
And to start the home stretch against Chicago with the Connor Bedard fanfare, that's going to be a raucous Ball Arena.
And that's going to be an interesting game, because I looked up Chicago's schedule. They start this season on a 5-game road trip, and that is their 5th road game. That is their last their road game before they head home. So that might be a tired unit to start a season that way. And we'll see. Like that's going to be, so it's their last game in that road trip, and it's obviously the Avalanche first home game. Yeah. So that could be ships passing in the night for that game. We'll see what that looks like. But really good matchups here for the Avalanche. I mean, like with the exception of San Jose, and Chicago should be improved with all the moves that they've made, and you get Bedard. It's kind of take him a little while to get acclimated, obviously. But they're I don't think they're going to be any slouch. And you got LA, who's a good team, Seattle, who's a good team, the Islanders, who are good, Pittsburgh is a good team, Buffalo is an improved team. That's a pretty tough opening month.
Yeah, especially I know everybody's looking right at that Seattle game. Let's get that done and over with. Let's try and amend how last season ended. But then you look at Pittsburgh, that's going to be a beefy team, half full of former Avalanche. And then you're going to see EJ again in Buffalo if he's healthy that deep into October.
Yeah. So that's how you start the season. A lot of road games and some pretty tough ones as well. You head over to November. So you have those 3 games on the East Coast, and you come right back against Buffalo. And there's a lot of red here. Red is home games. So you are, let's see. You have St. Louis, a couple days off. Vegas, there's your first matchup against Vegas. 3 home games against the Devils, the Kraken again, and then St. Louis again, and then the Kraken again. So you're playing them 3 times within the first month and a half of the regular season. Anaheim, Dallas, Nashville, those 2 are on the road. Home against Vancouver, and then there's your first back-to-back at Minnesota, then at home against Calgary, and then you end the month at home against Tampa and on the road in Arizona.
This is what you want to see. For those that are still bitter about how the playoffs ended, you get your Seattle fix, and you're going to be sick of them by mid-November.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
But I'm very interested to see Vancouver. That is a team that has been quiet, very, very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to see the Avs in Vancouver. I'd like to see that matchup. And here comes Arizona, the nemesis of the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah,
they're back on the schedule.
Looking, let's see. Thanksgiving is the 23rd, right? Thursday. That'd be the 23rd. You're playing the day before and the day after. That's all you get off. And then the day after is the first game of a back-to-back. So eat your turkey and get on the road.
It's fitting Black Friday is against the Wild.
Yeah.
It's just that rivalry game. Trounce people in the convenience store or the mall. That's Minnesota, Colorado, baby.
So that's your November. You head over to December. You start it with a couple games in California, Anaheim, back-to-back. There's your other back-to-back, Anaheim, and then LA again. Nice little home stretch here. 5-game home stretch. Anaheim again, Winnipeg, Philly, Calgary, and Buffalo. And all those games are game day, day off, game day, day. So you're playing a pretty good clip early in December. And then a road game in Winnipeg. And here's a back-to-back at home against San Jose. Go to Chicago. And then a couple of home games against Ottawa, your first time against playing them. And then another home game against Arizona. There's your Christmas break. You come out of Christmas break. You're playing 2 games on the road, Arizona again, and then St. Louis. And then you end the month New Year's Eve against San Jose at home.
Yeah, this is where you want to see the Avalanche. December is always a rocky month. With this game day off, you want to see them hit their stride, especially with how the schedule plays out and the opponent and the quality of opponent. You want to see them hit their stride in December.
Yeah. We head over to January. We'll get one more month in here, and then you start the new year. You have New Year's Day off. So January 2nd, you're home against the Islanders, on the road against Dallas. Is that the first time you're playing Dallas?
They play them in.
Did I mention them earlier?
Yes, they played them earlier.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, back in October.
Was it really? I can bring it in October really quick. I don't see him.
Oh
October.
no, November.
I don't see him
Right
in
after
November.
Anaheim. Right after Anaheim in November.
That's it. Anaheim. Oh, there they are. You're right. Okay. And then there's your first game against the Panthers. 3-game home stretch. Panthers, Bruins, Golden Knights, and then here's a East Coast trip, half Canada, half East Coast, Toronto, and then a back-to-back against Montreal and Ottawa, and then you're in Boston, and then you're in Philly, and then you end January 2 games at home against the Washington Capitals again, and then again against LA.
Yeah, this is a beefy, like, this is going to be one of those, can they run the table in January, some quality opponents, but you'll have to see how they escape December with how they approach January.
And look at that start time against Philly. 11 a.m. Mountain Time, 11 a.m. So that's why I'm wondering why. What's January 20th?
I wonder if that's that full slate day that the NHL is planning, because they're planning on putting 16 games on in one day.
But I didn't think it started that early. I thought it started later in the day. I don't know. I have to check, see what's up with that. So, all right, let's hear from FanDuel first, and then we will get back into finish up the schedule here. But we got FanDuel. You can take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount back in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, and that's win or lose. $200 you can spend betting on everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run, to the Atlanta Braves winning, which they probably will, to the Colorado Rockies losing, which they probably will as well. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get up to $200 in bonus bets. Once again, it's FanDuel.com/locked-on. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, we dive back into our schedule, just going through month by month, and then we're going to kind of go back and look at some of the matchups that we're really looking forward to. But in February, man, look at that road. That's a road warrior trip right there. All these to start the month of February are on the road, a back-to-back with the Rangers and Devils, and then Carolina, and then Florida, and then Washington, and then Tampa Bay. That's a tough stretch of games right there. And don't forget, let me go back to January here. There's another road trip right there with Toronto, Montreal, Ottawa, Boston, Philly. So you got a 5-game road trip, 2 home games. You got your break, and then a 6-game road trip after that. That's a brutal stretch right there.
2 weeks on the road.
Yeah, it is 2 full weeks. You're right. Because you're going, that Ranger game is Monday, February 5th. The last game is February 15th. You have 2 days off, and then you're playing at home against Arizona, and then another home game against Vancouver, a quick road trip to Detroit, then 2 home games again against Toronto and Dallas, and then you end the month on the road in Chicago. So the beginning of the month is, you can split this month in half, where it's a lot of road games in the beginning, and then more, you have 4 home games compared to 2 road games at the end of the month. But man, that's a brutal stretch dating back into January. I think when if you're looking at this schedule as a whole, that is where this team is going to be made, and really, like, what are they made out of? Really, from mid-January to mid-February. That month could be make or break for the Avalanche.
And honestly, you could look at those first 2 weeks of the season, and you could easily say, well, this is a potential Stanley Cup final match right here with any of those Eastern Conference teams.
Well, and you look at the Carolina one, we said that you played them back in October. That's one of your first games of the season. So that's not really going to, you don't have really bragging rights at that stage of the season. Now you're into February, and that's when you meet them again in their place. that might hold a little. People are maybe eyeing that one a little bit more.
Or that other black and red team that's sitting up there the day, the game before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think they were third, the Devils. I think it went Avalanche, Carolina, and then the Devils.
I think that top 6 is really going to be a force. And when it comes to February, seeing how the Avs limp through, if injuries become a problem, this is going to be one of those that we are going to look at all year long.
Yeah. That's a tough month. I mean, all those road games are tough road. It's always tough to play Ovechkin, in Washington. Yep. And then you're playing Toronto, you're playing Toronto again, Dallas again. So that February is a tough month. We head over to March, start the month off in Nashville, then follow that up with 3 home games, Chicago, Detroit, and Minnesota, and then a back-to-back on the road. Those stink.
Yes.
In Calgary, then very next day in Vancouver, a couple of days off, then in Edmonton, a couple of days off, then in St. Louis. So there's another road trip, a four-day road trip, 2 countries. Seems like that's the theme for this schedule this year is extended road trips.
Yeah.
But then you get a nice home stretch here with 5 straight to end the month. Columbus, Pittsburgh, Montreal, New York, Nashville. That's all at home. Let me check April real quick. No, then you're on the road. So that's overall, even though with those 4 straight road games, you are playing a good amount of them at home in March.
Yeah.
So,
and honestly, this is after that February, you're looking to those last 5 games at home in March to really right the ship and get things back. If you have a lot of repairing to do after that February, you need this week in March.
Yeah. And not only that, when it bleeds over into April, so you have those 5 road games, then you have 3 on the road, Columbus, a back-to-back with Minnesota, and then Edmonton. Those are always tough to go from United States to Canada back-to-back. And then 3 more home games, Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, then the very next day against Vegas, and then 3 days off. And your last game of the season is at home against the Oilers. So you're ending the season with a good amount of home games. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 home games and only 4 road games to end the season. That's not bad. That's kind of what you want to see.
And again, especially after that February, you need those home games. It's nice that they were a good road team last year, but you're going to need these home games to get everything right because we talked about it. All the everydayers know this team has the makeup to be a playoff contender, and this is where you make your adjustments.
Yeah, definitely. So what stands out to you? What are ones that you're kind of circling and really looking forward to?
That first matchup, Tuesday, November 7th against New Jersey. Again, I know Carolina, this has nothing to do with fandoms. If you just look at that top 6 for New Jersey, they're the new sexy, cool team. Like everybody's pointing to that top 6. Wow, look how this team is made up. This is extremely interesting, especially when you don't know what Nylander is going to do in Toronto because you hear those contract talks are so far off. These could be your upper top 2 teams when it comes to makeup, with the Avalanche getting Ryjo, Miles Wood, like all of these. It feels like the Clash of the Titans. Yeah. And I want to see what those 2, number 1, this could be your Stanley Cup, New Jersey and Colorado.
That's not a bad one. Yeah, and it's, you're still early in the season for that. It's the second week of November. So,
but again, you got healthy. You got healthy.
You do. And that's kind of around, you got a month under your belt into the season. So you really should have all the kinks worked out by then, you would hope. So that, I think that should be a good game. What else? What else are you looking at?
I know Dallas is always one of those opponents that they just rub you the wrong way. They're physical, just annoying games. And now Matt Duchene is a Dallas Star. And also in November, that November 18th game in Dallas, I feel like that's going to be a feisty game. And I want to see, well, like we talk about the talent level of this team, one of the big things that the Avalanche were pushing for is a gritty team. And this is where you see exactly how gritty they're going to be. And I feel like that November is going to be a big month for seeing where this Avs team's going to stand. And I would like to see what they look like against Dallas in Dallas with Matt Duchene wearing that green.
And those are two games that I am looking forward to are something similar of now former Avs coming back to Colorado. So obviously the two that stand out are Eric Johnson and JT Compher, right? I think you're in Buffalo first. So your first game is that's at the end of October. But when he comes back, that's going to be an emotional game. That's December 13th when Eric Johnson comes back. Check your connection. You're buzzing a little bit. So that's just going to be, you know what I mean? Like, come on. They're going to have the video up on the Jumbotron, and that's just going to be a really, really like emotional day for him, for everybody involved. You are playing them earlier, like I said, the end of October. But it's and then it's the middle of December, so it's Christmas season. Everyone's in that mode. So he's coming back then, and then Detroit comes to town not till March 6th. So that's going to be a little while for JT Compher to get his welcome back. And those are always games that you look forward to. So
I know they're going to give EJ the whole after commercial break video package. I wonder if they're gonna what is the fanfare for. Well, they did one for Burakovsky, so they'll do one for JT Compher.
Oh God, yeah, they'll do one for JT Compher. Absolutely, 100% they will. What else? Oh, you got any others that you like?
I did have that Buffalo game circled. I did find that very interesting, but let's be honest, we're not over Seattle.
Yeah, man.
That first game in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned the health factor. That is you're getting kind of the fantasy matchup. We said last year, if this team was healthy, that Seattle game wouldn't be that much of an issue. Now you get to find out.
Yeah. That's let's see, that's their
Tuesday, October 17th.
Yeah.
Third game.
Third game of the season. And will they still boo Cale Makar every time he touches the puck? Have they gotten over that, or is that just something that's going to follow them around and him around? I don't know for how long. Avs fans are still doing it with Matt Duchene. Yep. So it might be something that they have adopted as part of their game. The fans in when they're in attendance and it's in Seattle. Maybe they're going to do it. I don't really care. I don't think Cale Makar cares, but then who was it that slammed Cogliano into the board? So
and he's back, and with those 3 games, you get to test against New Jersey. You test your talent, mono on mono, the best on best. Against Dallas, you test how gritty the acquisitions to this lineup have made the Avalanche going into the rest of the season. And against Seattle, you get to answer those questions. Were we actually good enough to beat Seattle? Are they really that good? You figure some things out and you get to move on. And it's a good thing it's the 3rd game in the season, because we could put that behind us and focus on the rest of the season, because that February, like we mentioned, is going to be brutal. And we don't need to keep talking about getting knocked out in the playoffs last year.
Right. Yeah. So, for me, I agree with you. It's the Buffalo game at home. It's the Detroit game at home. It's that first matchup, those first couple matchups with Seattle, but specifically, the first one. I am looking forward to that first home game, not only because it's the first home game, but because it is against Chicago. You want to get your first look at Connor Bedard, even though that is Chicago's 5th straight home or away game. So you might not be getting the best of anybody there, but still, it's going to be entertaining to see him in the arena.
Not my fault. I'm not going to shed any tears for Chicago.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, I think those. And do you have any others, or is that
no? And that 2-week stretch on the road.
Yeah,
the February schedule is going to be rough, and just 2 weeks on the road is it's brutal.
But look what the Avs did last year. Remember, they were kind of like a team, like a little bit in flux, like doing okay, just kind
And
of
that
skating along.
Canadian road trip.
And then they went on that road, and then the Canadian road trip in Detroit. I think it was was it a four game road trip? Because I think they played. I think they played
And we were
Toronto.
just hoping for 500, and they exceeded that.
And they won all 4 of them, and it was off to the races after that. So I don't think they're afraid of a road trip, and sometimes it can galvanize a team. So. We'll see as the season gets here, and we always revisit the schedule at the beginning of every month to kind of like reassess where the Avalanche are and the teams that they're playing. And, so we will revisit these as the season goes along. So are there any games specifically that anybody out there has circled you're looking forward to? Some of the ones that we mentioned or other ones. So the Avs aren't taking part, and we don't have the national schedule either. So that's not out yet. We don't know how many games will be on national television, but we know the Avs are not part of any outdoor games or specialty games or games in other countries and stuff like that. So this is just a cut and dry NHL schedule. So anybody's out there really looking forward to, let us know in the comments. The last thing we're going to talk about today is not hockey. It is the 4th of July hot dog eating contest, which I don't really care about. I didn't even watch it this year. And I know it was like this thing that it was canceled, and then they actually had it, and then Joey Chestnutt wins it. And then for every year after he wins it, we have to talk about if he is one of the best athletes in American sport history. And then if you follow on Twitter, I put it up, like, we always talk about this for about an hour and then we never talk about it again because it's a ridiculous conversation, honestly. But every year, the hot dog eating contest gets its 15 minutes of fame, which it should. And then we should all move on. There should be no more conversation about, are these people athletes, and is Joey Chestnutt one of the best ones in sports history? I don't know why we keep talking about this, but it's hilarious to me.
If you put me in a buffet, I will rival Joey Chestnutt. You give me a $40 bill and put me in Taco Bell, I'm the best athlete on this planet.
But that's the thing. Like, we're all athletes then.
You betcha.
If hot dog eating is a sport, every human being is an athlete. There's just some that are better at it than me. And that's true for every single sport.
Yeah, there's a whole Guinness Book of World Records or the Ripley's Believe It or Not book for those crazy weird things.
Yeah,
you don't bleed it over into the are you the greatest athlete, because that disappears once it comes to like the LeBron James, the Connor McDavids, the Shohei Ohtanis, like, and the Joey Chestnutt. Like,
that's what dude. I wish I took a screenshot of it because I don't know who put it up. And he said, here's the top 10 athletes in American sports history, and don't argue with me. And he put, I think Michael Jordan was 1, and he listed. He had Wayne Gretzky at 7 and Joey Chestnutt at 8. And to that I say, you should be stripped of everything. You should be stripped down to you are not even considered a human being if you feel that Joey Chestnutt is just a notch below Wayne Gretzky. What are we doing, people? It's eating hot dogs. It's disgusting that this dude eats 67 hot dogs
with no condiments.
I'll congratulate you. Yeah, and you're soaking the bun in water. Like that's just, everything about it is disgusting. I was saying, like, I'll stand up and applaud you, I guess, because you want it is kind of fun and a little bit crazy to think that one person can do that in 10 minutes and not puke it all up. But it stops there for me. There's no other discussion that we need to have about this other than a human being ate 67 hot dogs. The conversation ends there. We don't need to go into other categories of, is it a sport and is he an athlete? No and no. Done.
Especially if you're putting him right behind Wayne Gretzky, who has records that will never be touched. Like, Ovechkin's trying, but he has records that are just unfathomable. And Chestnutt, his record, it will be beaten because guess what? We all have to eat.
I mean, like I said, if eating hot dogs is a sport, why aren't I in better shape?
Why is it not in the Olympics?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Where's the schedule for that?
Yeah.
Where's the 82 game schedule for that? I don't see it anywhere.
The day ESPN Plus starts bumping hockey for competitive eating.
Oh man. Let's not go there. I want to hear from people in the comments too. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. People, like, we can have conversations all day long about the Avs and moves that they made and trades that they made and draft picks. And if you like them or don't like them, if you feel this is a sport, I mean, you're feel free to comment that. You are not going to change my mind ever on this, ever.
A hot dog does sound good right now, though.
We're going to go eat some hot dogs. That's going to wrap it up for today. We will be back tomorrow with anything. Maybe, I don't know. So what else can we find on the Ocho that we can talk about?
Slam ball.
Yeah, that's back in a big
betcha.
way. So, all right, that's going to wrap it up, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. He is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.